You know something's wrong when the dishwasher smells like someone else's cologne. Not soap, not lemon, not even that weird vinegar she sometimes uses for her Pinterest eco-cleaning phase. No, this was distinctly him, and the plates were clean, but the betrayal lingered like the scent of a man who didn't even bother wiping the sink. Then there was the condom wrapper wedged under the fridge, too far in for it to be an accident, too recent for it to be from before we moved in. And the best part? She was still humming when she walked in the door, swaying like a high school girl sneaking back after curfew, completely oblivious that the music had stopped in my head the moment I found his cologne bleeding out of our dishwasher like cheap cologne vomit. But I didn't say anything. I didn't rage or scream or throw anything, because the moment I smelled that synthetic musk of betrayal, my brain clicked into place like a locked chamber. I watched her toss her keys into the bowl I bought for our anniversary, the one she said didn't go with the kitchen vibe, and I remember thinking, perfect, she doesn't even like the bowl she's about to drop her whole life into. I asked her how her English class went, and she lit up, told me about her amazing partner, who was so funny, and reminded her of a younger Antonio Banderas. Cute. She made a salad she didn't eat, poured wine she didn't drink, and left her phone screen up on the couch cushion, a rookie mistake. She never used to do that. And like fate handing me her own fingerprints on a murder weapon, it lit up. A text preview. Mi amor, I still taste you. I stared at it just long enough to etch it into my skull, then turned away before she noticed. You don't interrupt a traitor mid-self-destruction. The most damning evidence is always best collected while the liar still thinks they're in control. Over the next few weeks, I took mental inventory of everything, every lie, every slip, every late class that didn't exist. I learned more about her affair partner than she probably knew herself. 34, recently divorced, gym rat, thick accent from Barcelona, liked cigars and EDM. Yeah, I did my homework. I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was her immigration sponsor. The one man she couldn't afford to betray, and she'd picked the worst possible enemy to play. She thought she had time. She thought I was soft. She thought love was the reason I married her. She forgot that I was the one who took her out of a country where her job options were between nail salons and sugar daddies. And now, standing in my own home, watching her pretend to care about this marriage while sneaking mouthwash before kissing me goodnight, I realized she had no idea what was coming. That day, when I smelled another man inside the dishwasher, I didn't just discover her betrayal, I decided she was going to lose everything. Her life, as she knew it, was already over. She just hadn't signed the papers yet. At first, it was the laundry. Not the absence of it, no. She still washed my clothes, still folded my shirts with that same obsessive care she used when we were newlyweds. But one day, I noticed a pair of black lace underwear that I hadn't seen before. The kind I would have remembered because they weren't the kind she ever wore for me. I didn't ask. I told myself maybe she bought them for herself. Maybe it was self-care or some new trend she picked up in her class. She was always talking about her women's literature professor and how empowering the class was, how it helped her find her voice, her sense of self. I was proud at first. I encouraged it. I wanted her to grow, to expand, to feel seen. I never expected to be the first thing she outgrew. Our life still looked perfect on the outside, dinner together 3 nights a week, shared laughter when watching old comedies, Sunday brunches with her hand on mine like nothing had changed. But slowly, I started to feel like a placeholder. Like a ghost haunting the home I paid for. She started talking about needing space, about how important it was to have individual identities in a marriage. I nodded, supportive, trying to understand, even when she started locking the office door during her Zoom classes. Even when she spent hours alone at cafes and came back with a 1,000-yard stare and the smell of cigarette smoke in her hair, even though she never smoked a day in her life. I asked her once, casually, why her phone had gone from always being face up to always being face down. She laughed, called me paranoid, kissed me on the cheek, and asked if I trusted her. And I did. Or I wanted to. I told myself that everyone goes through changes, that maybe she was just finding herself after years of trying to be the perfect wife. She started journaling pages and pages filled with words I wasn't allowed to see. When I joked about it, she said they were too personal and that I needed to respect her boundaries. That word again. Boundaries. Like we were business partners, not lovers. I noticed she started wearing perfume again, only not the kind I liked, not the scent I used to buy her every Christmas. Something heavier, bolder, the kind that filled a room and stayed long after she left. She stopped asking me to pick her up from work. Started taking Ubers, even though I was always available. She said it was to avoid making me wait, but her location history, when it was still on, told a different story. Her photos on social media became curated, filtered, perfectly angled snapshots that made our life look like something out of a magazine, except I wasn't in any of them. Not one. Just plates of food, sunlit cafes, her feet on beaches I didn't visit with her. I remember one afternoon scrolling through her tagged photos and seeing a blurry image of her back, her hand resting on a table across from someone cropped out. She said it was a girls' night. I wanted to believe her. I needed to, because admitting otherwise meant the life we built was rotting beneath the paint. Then came the vision board, this massive corkboard she mounted in the guest room, covered in printouts and magazine clippings, pictures of travel destinations, quotes about freedom, fierce independence, radical self-love. She invited me to make my own, but when I pinned a photo of a house and a family, she said it felt limiting. She told me I was too traditional and that she was evolving. I watched her disappear slowly, like mist in sunlight, still in the room, but unreachable. She began staying out later, saying her classes ended at 9, but returning at midnight. She claimed she'd stayed to talk to classmates, but the receipts told a different story: bar tabs, ride shares from places far from the university. And yet I didn't accuse. I didn't beg. I didn't question. Because I wasn't ready to admit the truth. Because I loved her, or at least the version of her I married, the one who used to trace circles on my palm while we watched movies, the one who once cried when I surprised her with plane tickets to meet my parents. I kept hoping she'd come back. That this was a phase. That all of this, her new confidence, the secrets, the lies, was just some misguided attempt to find balance. I clung to the idea that maybe she just needed to wander before she realized where she belonged. But every night she came home a little later, smiled a little less, and looked at me like I was furniture, useful, dependable, invisible. I began to feel something colder growing inside me. Not rage. Not despair. Calculation. A seed of something ancient and quiet. I didn't know it then, but her freedom would come at a price. And I was already writing the invoice. It was a Tuesday, one of those gray, unremarkable days where nothing feels like it should matter, and yet everything changed with the sound of a laugh. Not hers. His. A male voice crackling through her Bluetooth speaker while she was in the shower, just loud enough to carry down the hallway, saying her name with the kind of slow, sticky familiarity that no classmate or friend should ever have. She hadn't turned off the Bluetooth pairing on her phone, and as her playlist switched tracks, it accidentally jumped to a voicemail. Still thinking about last night. Your skin, your mouth, the way you said my name when you... I didn't need to hear the rest. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, one hand still wrapped around the coffee mug I had brought her minutes before, her favorite, the one with the little fox on it that she said reminded her of home. The steam from the coffee twisted up toward my face like a ghost, and I remember watching it curl and dissipate, and thinking, this is it. This is where she dies to me. The water kept running, her silhouette flickering behind the fogged glass like some illusion of the woman I used to love. I didn't interrupt. I didn't walk in. I didn't confront her with the shaking phone in my hand or scream her name through the door like some desperate husband from a B-list drama. I sat down instead, slowly, in the hallway outside the bathroom, with her phone still buzzing in my palm, buzzing again with another message, and then another. Notifications stacked like gunshots. Can't wait to taste you again. You're mine now. He doesn't know, right? My thumb hovered, but I didn't unlock the screen. I didn't need to. I had all the proof I needed. And more than that, I had my moment. That perfect, sickening moment when every cell in your body stops pretending, when the floor of your trust gives out completely and you just float. No more illusions. No more guessing. Just clarity, pure and cold. I heard her laugh then from the shower, humming some tune like nothing in the world could touch her. And I knew, in that moment, she wasn't even thinking of me. She was fantasizing about him, maybe replaying the last time they were together, maybe plotting the next. I sat there, not blinking, while the scalding sound of her betrayal echoed from the bathroom tiles. There was no grief, no tears, just silence, loud and clinical. My mind began building a blueprint. Not of revenge, no, not yet. First came the system check. What did she have access to? What accounts were joint? What documents had she signed without reading? What digital fingerprints had she left in our shared life that I could now weaponize? I thought of the house deed. I thought of the savings account she barely monitored. I thought of the business we registered in both our names last year, the one where I had quietly filed a controlling interest transfer after she skipped a meeting to go study. I realized, in that moment, that the woman I was living with had no idea how little power she actually held. She believed she was in control. She believed that I was still operating under the old rules, where love meant patience, where suspicion meant open communication, where betrayal meant therapy and talking and healing. But I had exited that system. She just didn't know it yet. When the water finally shut off and the door creaked open, steam billowing out like a curtain before a final act, she caught sight of me sitting there. Her smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second, some primal instinct whispering to her that something had shifted in the air. "Hey, babe," she said, towel wrapped tightly, eyes blinking too fast. "Everything okay?" I nodded. Slowly. Measured. Like someone savoring the silence before a storm. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's perfect." And it was. Because she didn't know that I had already let go. That the man she was lying to no longer existed. That the war had already begun, and she was still showering in the battlefield. The next morning, I told her I'd be working late for a few nights, a fake project deadline I made up just to see how she'd react, and the smile that flickered across her face when she thought I wasn't looking told me everything I needed to know. That was confirmation number one. She played it well, asking if I'd be home for dinner, pretending to care, but her eyes had already moved past me, like I was scenery she'd memorized. I started my investigation with the one thing she never paid attention to, her digital footprint. Her laptop was always locked, her phone face down, but her smartwatch, the one I bought her last year, was synced to our shared cloud account. She'd forgotten that. Through it, I got access to her recent locations, calendar entries, even heartbeat patterns during certain times of day. Apparently, 9:13 p.m. every Tuesday sent her pulse soaring like she was sprinting. Only she wasn't at the gym. According to the GPS trail, she was parked in front of an apartment complex 30 minutes from campus. I wrote it down. Every time she said she had a late class or study group, I noted it in a separate, color-coded spreadsheet that tracked alibis, durations, locations, and inconsistencies. She had no idea I was building a dossier on her, one that would bury her. But I didn't just want proof. I wanted to map the lie. I made small talk at breakfast about her class schedule and watched her fumble the timeline when she forgot she'd already told me about the midterm. That was mistake number 2. I checked our bank statements, not the obvious ones she'd think I'd review, but the shared Venmo account she never unlinked. Recurring charges to a tapas bar downtown popped up like clockwork. Split bills, suspiciously even totals, tips that didn't match her usual stinginess. One of the usernames she was regularly paying had a profile photo of a motorcycle, his motorcycle, as I would later confirm. I screenshotted everything. Then I tested her. I told her I might stop by her campus on Friday to drop off a late lunch. Her eyes twitched. "Oh. Friday's not good," she said too fast. "We're doing, a library tour. Off campus." Her voice pitched slightly higher when she lied. I made a note. Instead of showing up at her school, I showed up at her best friend's apartment, the one who'd grown colder toward me lately, probably because she knew and couldn't look me in the eye. I waited in my car across the street. Sure enough, 10 minutes after the time she said she'd be on the tour, I watched her strut up to the building across the way, not her friend's place, but the same building from the GPS logs. She was dressed better than usual, lipstick thick and fresh, her walk slower, practiced, performative. I snapped a few photos, just enough for context, not confrontation. That came later. Then came the most unorthodox part. I made a fake online profile. I created a generic woman with no obvious details, added a few stock photos, and had a trusted female friend use the account to message her affair partner. Flirty, casual, curious. Within 2 hours, he replied. By hour 4, he was flirting back. By the next morning, I had screenshots of him offering to meet up, saying he was kind of seeing someone married, but it's complicated. Complicated. That was his word. Meanwhile, I placed small traps at home. Moved a pair of her heels behind the laundry door, just to see if she'd notice, or if she'd been wearing them somewhere and put them back without care. She didn't. I placed a small strip of tape over the bottom drawer in her nightstand, the one she started locking out of nowhere. 2 nights later, the seal was broken. She'd opened it. She was hiding something. Still, I didn't rush. Patience is how you separate vengeance from tantrum. I crafted trap questions with surgical precision. "How's Andrea?" I asked one evening, referring to her supposed study partner. She blinked. "Andrea," she said. "Oh." She dropped the course. Interesting, considering Andrea was listed in her phone as group study lead just 3 days ago. I asked if she still wanted to go to Spain next summer, a trip we'd once dreamed about. She hesitated, just long enough for the lie to construct itself, then said maybe she'd rather go alone, to reconnect with herself. By then, I was done collecting. I had browser histories, GPS logs, transaction records, social media timestamps, and screenshots of her affair. I even had voice memos she accidentally recorded on her smartwatch, one where she whispered, "He has no idea," while giggling in bed. She was right. I had no idea. But now? Now I knew everything. And she still thought the game was hers. That's the best part. When your enemy doesn't know they've already lost. When they're still smiling while standing in a minefield you built beneath their feet. I wasn't watching anymore. I was hunting. It happened at her favorite place, an upscale wine bar nestled in a rooftop garden downtown, the kind of place with candles on every table, soft jazz floating from hidden speakers, and enough ambient noise to mask the sound of a life unraveling. I made the reservation under her name, told her it was a surprise date night, a rekindling of sorts, something to distract her from her classes and the stress she always mentioned but never explained. She arrived 15 minutes late, dressed to kill, deep red lipstick, a low-cut black dress I hadn't seen in months, probably the one she wore for him. She looked around the terrace like she expected someone else, her eyes scanning the crowd until they locked on me. I smiled, stood, kissed her cheek, and guided her to the table without a word. She was talking too fast, complimenting the view, pretending to be excited, pretending we were still what we used to be. The waiter brought wine, her favorite, and just as she took a sip, I tapped my phone and mirrored the screen to the small tablet embedded in the table stand. "I had this table specially set," I said, tone even, calm, and then the screen lit up. A silent video, grainy but unmistakable. Her, in the hallway of that apartment building, kissing him in full view of a security camera I had accessed 2 weeks earlier through a simple forged maintenance request. She froze. The color drained from her face, and for a second, I could see the wheel spinning in her head, searching for the script. What is this?" she said, voice cracking but quickly recovering. It's not what it looks like." Denial. Predictable. I took a slow sip of wine and said nothing. "He's just a friend," she added. "I was helping him through his divorce. We got close, but she swallowed hard. We didn't sleep together." Justification. I slid my phone across the table, messages, screenshots, dates, times. Her moans in a voice memo, the unmistakable whimper of his name. She blinked. "Okay," she whispered, then louder, "Fine. It happened. Once. But maybe if you'd actually paid attention to me, I wouldn't have needed someone else to make me feel alive." Blame. I raised an eyebrow, still silent, watching her unravel like a badly stitched dress. She leaned forward, trying to take the phone, her fingers trembling. "You were always so cold. You never listened. You just wanted a pretty wife, not a partner." I stared at her, unmoved, then finally spoke. "That man," I said slowly. "The one who makes you feel alive?" He replied to a fake account I made within 2 hours, sent your text to another woman thinking she was real, and bragged about how naive you were. You weren't special to him. You were convenient. Her mouth fell open, the blood draining from her face. "That's not true." I nodded, tapping again, more screenshots, more messages. "He said you were the easiest married woman he's ever had. Said you were practically begging for it." She looked like she'd been slapped. Her hands were clenched on the table now, her breath shallow. "You bastard," she spat, but it lacked power. "You set me up." Her voice wavered between rage and panic. "You stalked me, spied on me, manipulated. I investigated. I interrupted, calm as ice. You lied. You betrayed. You destroyed." She sat back, suddenly smaller, like the confidence had been drained from her bones. "So what now?" she asked, trying to regain her composure. "You gonna post it all? Send it to my parents? What's your endgame, huh? Want to humiliate me?" Her voice held a shaky defiance, but the cracks were obvious. "No," I said. "That would imply you still have something to lose publicly. I'm not interested in shame. I'm interested in consequences." I paused. "You remember those documents you signed last month? The refinancing paperwork for the kitchen remodel?" Her eyes narrowed. "What about them? You signed over the house to me. Sole ownership. No claims. And the updated financial agreement you didn't read? You waived spousal support. All of it." Her fork slipped from her hand and clattered against the plate. "You're lying." "Try me," I said. "And that boutique you're so proud of? You transferred full operational control to me when I told you the distributor needed a primary owner for the import license." She went pale. You tricked me, she whispered, horror dawning across her features. This is entrapment. No, I said softly, this is chess. And I didn't trap you. You marched into every move with your eyes wide open. I just paid attention while you were too busy being adored by a man who treats women like disposable lighters. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. You think you've won? She asked, voice cracking. You think this makes you better than me? No, I replied, eyes locked on hers. I think this makes me free from you. And then, silence. No waiter dared approach. The music felt distant, muffled by the suffocating tension in the air. She sat there, shaking, glassy-eyed, the queen stripped of her throne, staring at a man who no longer hated her, but no longer saw her as human, either. And I didn't leave. Not yet. I wanted her to sit in it, to feel the weight of her crumbling kingdom. Because this wasn't the end. This was the prelude to extinction. She started unraveling the second the silence stretched too long between us, her breathing ragged, eyes darting, lips parting like she wanted to scream but couldn't find a target that would scream back, because I wouldn't. Her voice cracked first, soft and pathetic, the beginnings of a whimper. I made a mistake, okay? Just one. It didn't mean anything. But when I didn't answer, when I simply looked through her like she was a distant noise I'd already learned to tune out, she snapped. You think you're so perfect? She hissed, hands trembling, mascara beginning to blur just beneath her eyes. You think I cheated because I'm evil? You pushed me away. You made me feel invisible. Still, I said nothing. Her voice rose. Say something. And I did. Just 2 words. You're right. That stopped her momentarily. What? She asked, suddenly unsure. You're right, I repeated, voice calm, detached, surgical. You felt invisible. Because I stopped looking at you the day you started rehearsing your love for someone else. She flinched like I'd slapped her, then scoffed and tried to laugh, but it came out broken. Oh my God, she muttered. You're a robot. A cold, boring, emotionally dead robot. Her voice grew sharper, uglier. This is why I looked elsewhere. You sucked the air out of the room. You smothered me with your routines, your little acts of love, like I was supposed to be grateful for every cup of coffee or folded laundry while slowly dying inside. She was yelling now, drawing attention from nearby tables, but I didn't care. Let them watch. Let them witness the Empress melting down in public, stripped of her mask. You were never exciting, she spat, leaning in, her whisper sharper than her scream. You were stable. And dull. And you never made me feel anything. You were a project, something I settled for until I found someone who made me remember what it's like to be alive. Her words were designed to cut deep, to provoke, to claw her way back into dominance by drawing blood. I simply nodded, slow and deliberate. Then why are you still here? I asked. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I tilted my head. If he made you feel alive, why are you still sitting across from the boring man you outgrew? She slammed her hand on the table, rattling the glasses. Because you tricked me. You lied. You manipulated me into signing everything away. What kind of sick bastard does that? My reply was immediate. The kind who's been watching a corpse pretend to be his wife for 6 months. Her face twisted. You're disgusting. I didn't blink. You're done. That word lingered like smoke, done. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair over, eyes wide with fury and something else buried underneath it. Panic. Real panic. The kind that comes when a predator realizes it just got caged. You won't get away with this, she growled. I'll fight it. I'll go to the lawyer, the press, your job, and say what? I asked, cool as steel. That you cheated and got legally outplayed by the man who paid your tuition, sponsored your residency, and built you a business you handed over because you were too busy screwing your Spanish stallion to read the fine print. Her lips trembled. I could see her brain spinning now, cycling through every angle, every manipulation she'd ever used, emotional, intellectual, but none of them worked here. I wasn't angry. I wasn't desperate. I was gone. You were supposed to love me, she whispered, quieter now, vulnerable, almost human. I nodded. I did. Right up until the moment you confused love for obligation. She took a step back like the air had turned toxic, blinking fast, shaking her head like she was waking up from a bad dream. You're heartless, she mumbled, voice cracking under the weight of her own realization. I leaned in, close enough for only her to hear. No, I just learned how to stop bleeding for someone who sharpened the knife. And that was when it hit her, not just that she lost, but that I wasn't angry anymore. That there would be no dramatic meltdown, no second chance, no room left to manipulate. Just cold, calculated closure. And that terrified her more than rage ever could. Because hate is still an emotion. But indifference? That's where the real death begins. I didn't start with fire, I started with silence. Cold, clinical silence. While she sobbed in the ruins of her wine bar tantrum, I walked away, not with rage, but with the certainty of a man who'd already set the dominoes. The first thing I did was lock down the finances. Not with drama, but with a clean digital sweep. The joint checking account? Emptied. My share wired to a secure private account the moment I confirmed her affair. The credit cards? Reissued in my name only. I made sure the ones she used were flagged for fraud and shut down at midnight, right after she booked herself a weekend solo retreat to clear her head. She never made it past the airport parking garage. Her car, the one I leased in my name, repossessed, not by a company, but by me personally. I had the spare key. I drove it off our property and parked it in a friend's locked garage before she even noticed it was gone. I told her it had been reported stolen, filed a police report, and everything. She called me in a panic. I didn't answer. That same week, I filed the divorce papers. Everything had already been prepared by a discreet attorney I hired 2 months earlier, after her first suspicious alibi. The documents were thorough, unforgiving, airtight. Full custody filings were attached. The grounds were marital misconduct and abandonment. I included an affidavit with all the evidence, GPS logs, screenshots, call records, notarized witness statements. Not emotion, not opinion, just raw data. She'd have no case. She wouldn't even see the courtroom unless she wanted to lose what little dignity she had left. But I didn't stop at the paperwork. I went deeper. I contacted her employer. No dramatic confrontation, just an anonymous email sent to HR with links to a burner site I created. That site contained time-stamped proof of her cheating during work hours, photos of her entering and leaving that apartment building on days she claimed to be teaching. It even had audio snippets of her moaning his name on a voicemail while their company-issued lanyard was visible in the background. I didn't accuse, I simply expressed concern over potential conduct violations involving company property and misused time. Within 48 hours, she was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. I imagine that stung, especially since her big promotion review was scheduled for that same week. Then came the utilities, every account in my name, water, gas, internet, power, shut down at once. I timed it so the lights went out at night. She called me 3 times. I didn't pick up. She texted WTF is happening. I didn't respond. Her gym membership? Canceled. It was linked to our joint card. Her Amazon Prime? Gone. Her phone bill? Disconnected. I'd paid the balance and transferred her number to a prepaid plan that expired in 3 days. Every part of her daily life began to decay, and all without a single word from me. She still thought I might forgive her. That's the funniest part. She thought this was just punishment, not extermination. But it was only beginning. The real blow came when I invited her parents. Yes, the conservative, judgmental ones from her home country, to dinner. Not at my place. At theirs. I brought a flash drive, sat across from them with folded hands and said, I think you should know what your daughter has been doing while you've been sending her holiday blessings. Then I played the voicemail, the texts, the video of her sneaking into the other man's building wearing lingerie under a trench coat. Her father said nothing for 10 minutes. Her mother cried. I told them the truth, not with malice, but with calm, resigned clarity. I told them about the lies, the manipulation, the way she weaponized their culture's expectations while living like a shadow in mine. They thanked me. Her father shook my hand. I walked away. Not long after, I heard they'd cut her off financially, revoked the savings they were sending monthly. And then, just for flair, I sent a copy of the divorce petition to the affair partner, in a monogrammed envelope, with a simple sticky note attached, she's all yours now. I don't know if he ever opened it, but I know she found out, because she tried to call me, again and again. No more rage in her voice, no more confidence, just desperation, panic, begging. I didn't answer. I never raised my voice. I never made a scene. But by the time I was done, she had no money, no home, no job, no car, no lover, and no child. Only a cold apartment with no power and an inbox full of silence. She thought betrayal was a game. She forgot I was fluent in strategy. She thought I'd react like a man in pain. She never expected I'd respond like a man with a plan. It happened at her cousin's engagement party, one of those glittery, overly orchestrated family events where everyone dresses like royalty and pretends their lives are pristine. She begged me to go with her, said we needed to show unity, to keep up appearances, because it's important to my family. I agreed, with a smile. I even helped her zip up her dress, black, backless, the one she used to reserve for date nights that ended in hotel rooms, not betrayal. She didn't know that every person in that room already knew. Not from gossip, from evidence. I arrived early, pulled her cousin aside, the one she adored and always claimed was the sister she never had, and handed her a USB drive. Told her to play the file at the end of the engagement video montage, during the family tribute. Just trust me, I said. Her cousin glanced at me, read something in my face, and nodded. And so, there we were, seated front and center, surrounded by smiling relatives, friends, co-workers, people she spent years crafting a perfect image around. She clung to my arm the way manipulators do when they think they're winning again. Told me I looked handsome. Kissed my cheek in front of her aunt. I just smiled. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. First came the sweet photos, childhood clips, inside jokes, couple selfies. Everyone clapped. Then the screen flickered, just slightly, and the audio changed. No more music. Just static. And then, her voice. Soft, breathless, moaning his name. The camera cut to a night vision hallway clip of her kissing him, hands wandering, her laugh unmistakable. Then text messages scrolled across the screen like credits. I can't stop thinking about last night. He doesn't know a thing. I want you inside me again. Gasps erupted across the room. Her mother's hands flew to her mouth. Her father stood up, his face blank and white. Her best friend, the one she'd sworn loyalty to since college, slowly turned and looked at me, then back at her, with disgust. The video kept playing. It wasn't edited for theatrics. Just raw, chronological truth. Her patterns, her lies, her betrayal. And when it finally stopped, the room sat in silence. All eyes on her. She blinked, mouth open, like her brain was still buffering. Then she did what all manipulators do when the script fails. She laughed. A brittle, fake giggle. Okay, wow, what the hell was that? Some kind of prank. No one moved. Her cousin stood slowly, walked to the front, microphone in hand. It wasn't a prank, she said. I confirmed everything. It's all real. The color drained from her face. You're serious? She choked. You showed that to everyone? Her cousin's eyes narrowed. We deserve to know who you really are. Then her lover's voice echoed from the back of the room. You said this was over. You told me you handled it. Everyone turned. He was standing there, arms crossed, seething, exposed by association. You told me I was the only one, that he didn't matter. Wait, she said, stepping forward, shaking her head, eyes darting. No, you don't get to stand there and act innocent. You knew you wanted this. I wanted a good time, he said coldly. Not to be the center of a damn scandal. And then, in front of everyone, he turned and walked out. She stood frozen, lips trembling. The laughter was gone now. Just pure, unfiltered panic. She looked at her parents, both still seated but not meeting her gaze. Her mother whispered something to her father. He just shook his head. Mom, she whispered. Dad, no response. No comfort. Then she turned to me. Her last chance. Her lifeline. Her escape. Please, she said, her voice small, cracking. Tell them this isn't what it looks like. That we're okay. That you forgive me. I didn't speak. I just looked at her. Calm, silent, steady. She crumbled right there. Knees buckled. Hands to her face. Sobbing. Not from guilt. From exposure. From the unbearable weight of every mask shattering at once. I didn't touch her. I didn't say a word. I stood still, letting her feel the full force of it. And that's what broke her. Not the video. Not the whispers. Me. The fact that I stood there, expressionless, letting her drown while the world she built collapsed. She saw in my eyes that there would be no rescue. No comeback. Just silence. And she realized, in real time, that the man she lied to, cheated on, and underestimated was no longer hers to manipulate. I didn't walk away. I let the crowd surround her, questions, stares, judgment. She looked up through teary eyes and saw me. Still there. Watching. Not out of hate. Not out of revenge. But because I wanted her to understand one thing, as deeply and permanently as possible, This is what it feels like to lose everything. She cornered me in the courtyard outside the banquet hall, her heels clacking like gunshots on the marble, mascara streaked, jaw clenched like she'd finally decided to fight fire with gasoline. You think you're some kind of hero? She snapped, voice trembling but loud enough to draw eyes. Her mother was a few steps behind, arms folded, face blank. My brother stood off to the side, silent, jaw tight. You humiliated me, she screamed, and now heads were turning, guests from the party, waitstaff, her friends, people gathering near the hedges and tables, phones already out, filming. You had no right to do that. You ambushed me in front of my family, my coworkers. I gave you truth, I said, my voice calm, cutting through her shrieking like steel. I showed them what you spent months hiding, what you did to me, to us. Don't act like some wounded saint, she spat. You're not innocent. You're a manipulative, obsessive control freak who trapped me in a life I didn't want. You didn't want the life you begged for? I shot back. You didn't want the ring, the visa, the business, the house? You played house until a better offer flashed a smile, and now you're blaming me for the dirt under your hands. Her friend tried to pull her away, but she yanked her arm free. You were boring. You were a routine, a paycheck with a heartbeat. I gave up my youth, my body, my freedom for you, and what did I get? A cold bed and a man who couldn't even make me feel anything anymore. You didn't give me your body, I growled, stepping closer, voice low but lethal. You sold it, piece by piece, kiss by lie, until the only person who believed you had a soul left was the man you betrayed. And even he dumped you the second he saw the full picture. Her face twisted, rage flashing, but then came the crack, the tremble in her lip, the widening eyes as the weight of her isolation sank in. You think this makes you powerful? She screamed, spinning toward the crowd. You all think he's some victim? Some noble husband? He's a calculating monster. He tricked me into signing everything away. He set me up. Her father stepped forward now, slow and deliberate. We taught you better than this, he said, voice cold, heavy. You destroyed your marriage. You disgraced this family. Shut up, she shrieked, whirling on him. You were never there. You never understood me. You think siding with him fixes anything? Her father didn't respond, just turned and walked away. That broke her composure. She spun back to me, voice cracking now, desperate, manic. You love this. You love tearing me down. You're just a coward who couldn't satisfy his wife, so you decided to destroy her instead. I took a step forward, and everyone went quiet. No, I said, loud enough for the crowd. I'm a man who finally learned that love without loyalty is just self-destruction. You want to play the victim? Fine. Tell them all how I ruined you. But don't forget to mention the hotel rooms, the lies, the voicemail where you said his name while wearing my ring. Don't forget to mention that while I was saving for your business, you were giving another man a tour of our bed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a glass. Her best friend covered her mouth. You planned this, she hissed, shaking. You manipulated everything. No, I said. I adapted. You drew the first knife. I just made sure it never touched me again. You destroyed my life, she whispered. No, I said coldly. You did that. I just handed you the mirror. She lunged at me, emotion, not violence. But my brother stepped between us, his eyes burning holes into her. It's over, he said, voice low. You lost. She screamed, a guttural, animal noise, and collapsed into her friend's arms, sobbing uncontrollably, her whole body trembling as the weight of her destruction folded in on itself. I looked at her one last time. No hate, no rage, just indifference, the kind that kills slower than any insult, and then I turned. No applause, no drama, just the sound of her world caving in behind me, while I walked away with every piece of myself intact. 3 months after her fall, she was living alone in a studio apartment above a pawn shop 2 towns over, her once polished world reduced to discount wine, thrift store mirrors, and silence that screamed louder than any argument we ever had. Her social media disappeared overnight, not by choice but necessity. No likes, no comments, no curated brunch selfies, because everyone she knew had quietly hit block, unfriend, mute. Her best friend? Gone. Her coworkers? Avoided her in public like she was contagious. Word had spread fast, not because I pushed it, but because truth doesn't need promotion. It just needs to be seen. Her job let her go under the excuse of department restructuring, but we both knew the real reason was buried in those screenshots, the audio, the fact that clients started whispering when she walked in. Her parents stopped answering her calls. Her sister returned her birthday card unopened. The man she gave everything up for? He disappeared the moment she was no longer someone else's forbidden thrill. No more weekend escapes. No more backseat confessions. No more empty promises whispered into stolen time. She tried to reinvent herself in a smaller city, took a job answering phones at some warehouse office, where no one cared about her GPA, her growth journey, or her excuses. I didn't hear from her for a while. Until one night, I got a message, 2 words that made my skin crawl from how pitiful they sounded. "I'm sorry," followed by another, "I still love you." I didn't reply. Not right away. I didn't feel anger or sadness, just the kind of cold clarity you get when the infection's already been cut out and cauterized. She showed up at my door a week later. No makeup, hair pulled back, hoodie and jeans, eyes hollow, face pale. She looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks, maybe months. When I opened the door, she looked up with this soft, broken smile, the kind you give someone right before begging for something you don't deserve. "I just wanted to see you," she whispered. "To talk. To apologize." Till her voice trailed off. "To what?" I asked. "To explain." She nodded, biting her lip, like she was about to cry. "I messed up. I know that now. You were always good to me. I didn't see it until it was gone." "You didn't mess up," I said. "You chose. Over and over. You chose him. You chose lies. You chose ego." Her lips trembled. "I lost everything." "No," I replied, leaning against the doorframe. "You threw it away. There's a difference." She wiped her eyes. "Don't you miss me? Even a little?" "I don't even remember your name anymore," I said, and her whole body seemed to deflate like someone popped the last balloon at a party she wasn't invited to. I let the silence hang for a few long seconds. Then I stepped back, and I closed the door. Not with a slam. Not with anger. Just the final, definitive sound of something that would never reopen. Because she wasn't my wife anymore. She wasn't even a memory. She was a cautionary tale wrapped in perfume and regret. And I had already buried her in a coffin made of her own choices. Thanks for listening to my story. I want to know, where are you from? And did this hit the way you thought it would?